Hello, friends. Today we're going to see about how a miscommunication caused the destruction of a complete city of Rotterdam. In World War II, due to poor communication, the Germans were not able to call off a bombing raid on Notre Dame, which led to the complete destruction of the city. The noise of air sirens filled the skies of Rotterdam, and Dutch citizens were running to their safety. As Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, bombers flew over the city, the city's mayor was amused as he didn't expect them over there. The mayor has just made a deal with the German government and thought that the air raid was cancelled. Unfortunately, the order to cancel the raid didn't reach the Luftwaffe pilots, and thousands of bombs descended on Rotterdam that day. The city center was reduced to rubble and ashes. After the invasion of Poland and Czechoslovakia, Hitler set his aim on the Low Countries of Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. These countries were essential for the German war efforts. The Luftwaffe would need an airfield in Belgium that can help Germany to bomb Britain. Belgium can act as a launchpad for the next invasion of France. And also, the three countries offered raw materials for the war effort and also good ports which can be used to get supplies for Germany. Based on a conspiracy theory that Belgium was involved to assassinate Hitler, Germany launched an invasion of Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Luftwaffe attacked crucial defensive positions, and paratroopers were dropped to secure important bridges all across Belgium so that the Wehrmacht can spearhead its offensive. Britain and France placed its troops in order to guard Belgium, but the Blitzkrieg was very swift that they have to move their troops all the way back into the Magenta line. After the few cities which fell for the German invasion, the German army were able to reach Rotterdam by 13th of May 1940. The commander of Rotterdam, Colonel Charoux, got an invitation from the German command who was laying the siege on Rotterdam, General Schmidt. The Germans were very keen to acquire the Rotterdam port intact for their war efforts and offered a deal to Rotterdam's mayor while Luftwaffe was bombing the outskirts of Rotterdam to keep the pressure built up. The deal was that Rotterdam has to surrender unconditionally or else Luftwaffe will bomb the city to ashes. The deal was supposed to expire by mid noon, but the commander of the Rotterdam asked for an extension so that he can speak with the city council on the deal. The extension was offered, and the city was able to convince the people of Rotterdam for the surrender also. And then they gave a formal letter of surrender to the German commander, General Schmidt. But General Schmidt rejected the deal, saying that it has to be signed by a proper authority to make it legal. So the paper came back to General Charoux, who got the sign and also sent it back. While the messenger was carrying the letter, was traveling back to the German high command, he was stopped briefly due to the bombings which are happening due to Luftwaffe. When the letter reached General Schmidt, he called up Luftwaffe and asked them to cancel the raid. But unfortunately, the bombers were already on the sky towards Rotterdam, and nothing they can do to stop it. This was due to the reason that the German bombers maintained a radio silence when they are on enemy territory so that they are not disturbed by eavesdropping by enemy radio signals. And this meant that the Luftwaffe cannot be contacted by the ground station and the bombing will happen on Rotterdam. The German troops which entered into Rotterdam set up red flares all around the city to indicate that Luftwaffe that this is a friendly territory and they should not bomb. But unfortunately, the previous bombings had created so much of fire and smoke that the Luftwaffe pilots were not able to see the red flare and they dropped the bombs which they got in. So on that day, close to 5,000 kilo of bombs were dropped on Rotterdam and the city was almost reduced to ashes. The fires, which were started by this bomb, raged on for days. The city center's church was the only structure which stood on the city center, and about 900 people died due to this raid. Britain had a policy of not to attack German civil installations during World War II as a part of the policy. But after the Rotterdam bombing, the Britain was so much infuriated that this rule was dropped, and the RAF, or the Royal Air Force of the British Armed Divisions, was given the permission to bomb civil buildings also as part of the war. The Rotterdam was able to stand quickly back on its heels. The city was replanned by W.G.Witteveenas as Rotterdam was facing a lot of congestion before the bombing. The streets were narrow and they wanted to restructure the city, and the bombing has now left everything on rubbles. So Rotterdam was replanned with large boulevards and skyscrapers. The Allied bombed Rotterdam again in 1942, but still the building remained intact. So Rotterdam now grew from its ashes like a phoenix bird, and now it's one of the most important cities in the world. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget.